Story 1. The Algorithm in the Atrium, Abandoned Mall. On Halloween night, the abandoned Willow Run Mall felt too big to hold itself together. The skylights were cataracted with grime, the fountain was a dry crater of coins welded in rust, and a lone paper bat still dangled from a fishing line where management had once tried to be festive. Ava said it'd be easy. One night gig, lock reset audit for a third-party security app. Scan QR codes on storefront padlocks, log timestamps, get double pay for a holiday shift. She brought Theo because the app needed two-factor verification, and because she liked the way he made fun of fear. He brought Jay to document it for TikTok. On the loading dock, the steel door opened like a yawn. The app's map bloomed in Ava's hand, empty stores pulsing as gray dots. 4 hours tops, she said. Then ramen. The mall had its own night weather. It smelled like cardboard and pennies. Their lights combed across shuttered gates and headless mannequins. Jay filmed everything, narrating with a sound that was either irony or defense. The algorithm rewarded activity, not safety. The more they logged, the more the app hooked them with dynamic incentives. Every time Ava scanned a lock, a little confetti animation burst across her screen. Every time she looked up, she felt watched by lens or by air, she couldn't tell. They reached the atrium where the Halloween store used to pop up every year. Now it was empty, except for a single standee, the silhouette of a person-shaped advert, its edges curled like burned paper. Theo found an emergency exit. Shortcut, he said. The map warned. Door, not in system. Theo shrugged, and they pushed through. The other side wasn't a corridor, but an echo. The storefronts were the same, but their signs were wrong. Phi spelled with a 3. Bath and Body Works stretched into a phrase like Bath and Body Work. The food court, a ring of kiosks with names that were almost family. This is weird, Jay said, still filming. The notification pinged again. Bonus path unlocked. Stay the course for 2x earnings. Ava held the phone like a talisman. How did it know we came through? Theo asked. The screen showed their blue dot moving in a corridor labeled only with a pumpkin emoji. The atrium had an autumnal theme, now paper leaves under plastic leaves, and above, a mobile of orange bulbs flickering as if the ceiling were breathing. Ava scanned a lock. Confetti fell inside the phone, and somewhere in the corridor, real confetti spiraled down, dry, dusty, decades old. Stop, she said, backing up, but the app vibrated. Only 12 to go. They turned a corner into the children's wing. There was a carousel there once, just horses prancing to tinny music. Now the carousel had no animals, only mirrors. Each panel showed a different reflection. Ava in her freshman dorm with a purple comforter. Theo in his senior year hoodie, a black eye blooming from a fight he'd won. Jay cutting their hair, face set like a dare. The mirrors moved as if the whole structure were turning, but the floor was still. Deepfake mirrors, Theo joked, though he'd gone pale. Halloween had always owed them mirrors, costumes, versions, lies you could put on. It's pulling from, what, our accounts? Jay said. The carousel paused on 3 panels at once. In Ava's, a version of her looked back with a dead battery stare, then reached through the glass as if the distance were measured in signals, not space. Her phone vibrated harder. Scan 11 over 12. She scanned because that's what she'd been taught. Complete the task, clear the screen, make the world behave. Their blue dot reached the last lock in the anchor store that hadn't been a store in years. Inside, the dust seemed organized, like someone had combed it. The mannequins faced the wall, hands raised in surrender. The app offered super bonus if you turn around slowly. Who writes these prompts? Theo said, but he turned anyway, laughing at the tension. Halfway through the spin, the fire alarms hiccuped to life. Orange bulbs in the ceiling snapped on, painting everything in candy tones. The mannequins pivoted, joints squealing, faces blank. In the carousel's mirrors down the hall, their reflections danced in a loop, an algorithm trying to predict them into fear. Ava whispered, "It's learning us." The app pinged an unfamiliar tone. The map phased, replacing their dot with 3 pumpkin icons, one for each of them. Beneath, text, "Participants registered. Thank you for joining the Halloween activation." They ran. The mall reacted. Gates rattled shut just as they reached them. Corridors stretched. The atrium skylights darkened into slabs. In the center, the dry fountain hissed with air, then a spray of black water that smelled like dust and electricity. The coin pool was deeper than it had any right to be. The app buzzed like a nest. "Don't look at it," Jay said, breathless, filming anyway. "Don't give it engagement." They reached the loading dock door and met themselves coming out, 3 shadows moving wrong, too buoyant, as if the floor were forgiving them. "Close your apps," Theo yelled. Ava forced a hard shutdown. The phone insisted on one last prompt. "Finish session for payout." She threw it into the fountain. The water swallowed the screen with a sound like applause, then went still. When they burst outside into ordinary October, the moon looked like it had always looked, a thumbprint on black glass. Their breath showed. Their hearts pounded. The app's logo glowed through the water, dimming slowly until the fountain was nothing but a crater again. A week later, Ava's bank account pinged with a deposit from an unknown vendor. Memo: Halloween activation audience capture. The amount was generous enough to make the panic feel negotiable. Her new phone resisted the urge to re-download the app and failed. At 3 a.m., a video auto-played on her feed. 3 silhouettes crossing an atrium as orange bulbs breathed overhead. The caption read, "Would you go for 2x?" The comments were hearts and screams. She tried to scroll past, but the video looped. It looped with small changes. Theo looking back 1 frame later, Jay's camera angle shifting by degrees, like a mall of mirrors she hadn't left, like a gig that was still paying an attention, like a Halloween that remembered her name. Story 2. The Detention After Midnight. Abandoned High School. When Birchfield High closed, they didn't bulldoze it, they just locked it and let the ivy do the paperwork. You could still see the painted tiger on the gym floor, through the cracked doors, and if you pressed your ear to the glass, you could hear the old clock's dry cough every hour. On Halloween, Mia, Dev, and Lark returned with a bolt cutter and a vow: get the time capsule. 10 years before, Miss Lorenzo had promised the class of sophomores a reveal at graduation. Then the school failed inspection, then funding, then reality. The capsule, an aluminum lunchbox with a padlock hidden somewhere students would always find their way back to, became a legend. They slipped in, the linoleum sighing under their feet. The corridors smelled like textbooks and mildew. Mia's headlamp grazed trophy cases, posters curling into maps of ghosts, a whiteboard that still said Halloween dance canceled. "I swear I hear that clock," Dev said, adjusting his backpack straps. He'd spent most of his life wishing for a do-over and hating it when he got one. Lark, who could pick any lock, was humming. Mia held the bolt cutter like a promise. The main hall led to the detention room, the old media center where the librarian had once guarded the school's secrets with a date stamp. They found the capsule not under the floorboards or in the ceiling, but behind a bank of computers from the era when typing class was a future. The lunchbox was taped to the back of a tower, with duct tape gone brittle. The lock hung like a silver tongue. "Got you." Inside, there were letters to futures that hadn't shown up. A photograph of the cafeteria mural before someone spray-painted over the principal. A USB drive labeled Archive. Mia pocketed the drive. The letters were yellow at the edges, but one pulsed with a bleeding freshness ink too wet for age. Lark unfolded it. "Welcome back, Tigers." The letter was addressed to whoever opened the capsule at midnight on Halloween. It mentioned the clock, the old, installed before the war clock whose gears bit the air every 60 minutes like a promise. It said the clock was set to a different schedule tonight. Who wrote this? They followed the letter's instructions. Go to the gym, stand at center court, listen to what you forgot. The gym smelled like basketballs and sweat preserved in amber. The tiger in the center was scabbed with dust. The bleachers were scar rails. Above it all, the clock, enormous, ticking in a key they'd once lived by. When the hands hit midnight, the exit doors sighed shut. The overhead lights hum-clicked, and then washed the room with a flat daylight that felt like a lie. The scoreboard lit up with a score. Home 35, away 34. The buzzer sounded. Okay, miss. Lorenzo did not set this up, but she did, in a way only a woman who loved theater and math could have. The floor vibrated under their shoes. The lines on the court flexed and straightened into a grid. A projector behind the bleachers stuttered to life. On the wall, there they were, younger versions sitting in desks, whispering, texting, drawing skulls in the margins, eyes flicking to the clock before every bell. Only these weren't recordings, they were near memories. The kinds you misremember together, until you're sure they're true. The projection, Mia wrote a note. Don't trust hallway mirrors. Projection Dev fell asleep third period. his head sliding off his hand and jerking awake as if pulled by a string. Projection Lark climbed onto the library table when a mouse ran out, a rumor made real if you replayed it enough times. When you come back on Halloween, meet me at the clock. I'll fix what I couldn't fix when the doors were open. The hands clicked. A second door opened in the gym's far wall, a door not on any plan. Behind it, the clock's room was a cathedral of gears. Miss. Lorenzo stood there, unchanged and entirely changed. Her cardigan neat, her hair pinned up, shadows pooling under her eyes like she'd been grading the dark. You kept it, she said softly, noticing the lunchbox in Mia's hand. Good. Are you? Miss Lorenzo smiled the way she had when someone answered a question in a way that surprised her. I left messages knowing some would decay. This one is fresh because it happens now. She reached out and touched the clock's pendulum. It stilled and then resumed beating, but the beats overlapped, as if time were working a double shift. There were students who never got a last bell. Lessons interrupted by evacuations, by closures, by something in the air we couldn't name at first. Halloween is when we practice losing ourselves safely. So I built a practice bell, a chance to give back the endings you were cheated. The gym's lines snapped bright. The bleachers creaked, as if 100 bodies exhaled at once. Figures stepped out of the projections, kids in hoodies and ripped jeans and orchestra polos, faces fuzzed at the edges like old photos. They moved to their lockers, to their crushes, to their mistakes. The clock hand spun, hitting 2:57, then 3, and a bell rang the pure tone of remission. Mia's chest hurt. She thought of all the days that had closed without a bell, conversations cut by alarms, futures canceled by committees. Dev cried, ugly and quiet. Lark took Miss Lorenzo's hand, which felt exactly like a hand. What happens when the bell is done? You leave. You take the letters with you in the drive. You tell the others that it's okay to want an ending and to make one when none is offered, and you don't look back at the clock as you go. They tried to obey. The exit doors opened with a school day ease. When they crossed the threshold, the night slapped them cold and crisp. Behind them, the gym lights cut out one by one. They didn't look back. But the time capsule felt heavier, as if it contained gravity now, as if bells could be stored and spent. A week later, Mia plugged the USB into her laptop. It contained scanned detention slips, yearbook spreads, a folder called Halloween. Inside that, a clip of the gym at dusk, just us. No ghosts, the clock ticking like a heart no one had to earn. She closed the laptop and listened to the empty town. Somewhere, a bell sounded that wasn't on any schedule. It didn't tell her what to do. It told her she could choose. Story 3. Room 217. Do not disturb. Abandoned motel. If you drive out past the last gas station and the giant fiberglass cow with one eye, there's a motel whose sign still promises collar TV and air. The Desert Star used to catch families with its kid-friendly pool and a vending machine that never ate your quarters. After the interstates changed their minds and Halloween became an indoor party, the Desert Star slid into the kind of silence that accumulates. Cass runs a small paranormal podcast, which is to say, she runs on coffee, edits in the middle of the night, and lives for that click when someone new subscribes. On October 31st, she and her 2 regular guests, Mo, who brings a skeptical kindness, and Ren, who believes in everything because it's more fun, decided to record a live Halloween special from the abandoned motel. Room 217, Ren said, paging through urban legend forums. Supposedly, the owner's daughter locked herself in the bathroom on Halloween 1999 and never came out. Or she did, but she was different. Perfect. That's just how people talk about girls who get eyeliner, Mo said. They broke into the lobby, which didn't so much break as sigh open. The front desk still had a bell. The key wall was missing most of its teeth, but 217 hung there, stubborn, tagged with a plastic triangle like a motel earring. Cass clipped it to her belt loop for the sound. They set up in the room with microphones and folding chairs. Halloween candy dumped into a bowl like an offering. The recording light glowed. Cass did her intro, welcome back to Night Shift, where the stories keep the lights on, and tried not to notice how the carpet's pattern seemed to move when you stared at it. The bathroom door was warped. The tub held afternoon shadows, though it was past midnight. Ren lay on the bed, arms spread like a trust fall. You know how every motel has that one room no one wants? Mo said into the mic. The AC rattles. The TV's volume button doesn't obey. The ice machine outside never sleeps there. Room 217 is just that. But our brains need the world to care in a narrative way. Except listen. From the bathroom a phone rang. There was no phone in the bathroom. Their portable recorder captured the sound tinny, pleading. The light in the ceiling fluttered like a mild panic attack. Mo's mouth formed a no that came out as a yes. Ren pointed. Cass got up. The bathroom door shuddered when she touched it. The mirror over the sink had a crack like a hairline fracture in the night. The ring stopped. Cass looked back at the recorder. The levels bounced, hearing a sound their ears did not. She hit pause and then record again, because there was nothing else to do. The motel's owner, in the stories, was precise in ways that made people tired. She'd painted the parking spaces to align with someone's idea of perfection. She'd dusted fake plants. The daughter, according to the legend, was tired in ways that made precision feel like a safe house. On Halloween, something knocked at their door dressed like a child. The owner let it in, because that is what owners must do. The daughter locked herself in the bathroom because that is what daughters sometimes do. Tell the story your way, Ren said softly. What are we listening for? They asked, hand on the knob. Permission? Ren said. Cass nodded. If she'll let us tell it. They turned the knob, slow as a second hand. The bathroom was small as a confession, the toilet abandoned mid-century, the tub's porcelain scratched with history. On the sink lay a motel notepad that hadn't been there before, upside down, pencil beneath it like a spine. Ren flipped it over with 2 fingers. On the paper, block letters, do not describe me. What does that mean? Mo whispered, because whispering felt like respecting someone's room. Cass reached for the recorder and stopped. The note was an experiment. It asked whether telling a story creates a trap. Okay, Cass said. To the room. To the world. We won't. They recorded the rest of the episode as edges. The hum of the broken light. The far-off truck noise that shouldn't exist on a dead road. The way the candy wrappers uncrinkled themselves when no one was looking. They told listeners about the motel sign's missing letters, DES, T-star, about Ren's theory that ghosts are the parts of us that need more air. They did not describe the girl, or what she might have worn, or what eyeliner does to a face. They did not narrate anyone's fear back to them. Yet the bathroom door shifted on its warped hinges like a breath. The tub filled slowly with something that reflected light but wasn't water. It climbed to the rim and didn't spill. Ren looked and then looked away. Mo closed their eyes, opened them again, ready to not be a good audience if that was the price. When they packed up, the key to 217 was heavier on Cass's belt, as if it had acquired atoms. They left the door open. The motel liked its doors open. The episode went live at 3:17 a.m. The download count spiked in a way that was both thrilling and unsettling, like finding out your house is famous for the wrong reason. Comments rolled in. I felt seen. I turned the lights off for this and felt safe somehow. One comment only said, thank you for not describing me. A week later, Cass drove past the last gas station in the cow to drop the key back. The motel glowed faintly, like a bruise healing. On the front desk, a new notepad waited, crisp as a sheet, with the first page written on already. Do not describe me. Understand me. The bell on the counter rang itself once, and the sound was not a jump scare but an agreement. Some doors open because the people inside choose to let air through. Story 4. The Night Shift at Helix 9. Abandoned Lab. Easy money, Ben said, sliding the ID card across the dashboard. They just want a body in the chair in case some landlord decides to tour the place. Midnight to 6. It's Halloween. Everyone else is at a party. Z needed rent and relief from their phone. Both were quietest on nights like this. Helix 9 had been a biotech startup with a campus that looked like a dentist designed a spaceship. The building had been evacuated 2 years ago, when a grant dried up and a rumor didn't. Now it was a hollow with a security system that performed calibrations to an empty room. Ben waved and left Z at the glass doors. The ID still worked. Inside, the lobby held a sculpture that was either DNA or a staircase that had given up. The air tasted like a refrigerator. Z checked in at the security terminal. A cheerful interface asked them to confirm occupancy. They tapped confirm, and the building sighed like a sleeping thing rolling over. Their job was to sit at the desk, patrol twice an hour, sign a clipboard no one would read. They did their rounds, skirting rooms with words like cytology and growth media stenciled on them, peering into labs where fridges blinked tiny green eyes. The Halloween night pressed its face to the windows. The overheads buzzed in long paragraphs. At 1:03 a.m. The terminal pinged. Scheduled maintenance. Containment doors test. A blueprint appeared. The building rendered as a cross-section. One by one, doors slid out of walls or sealed with a rubber hiss. Z watched with the fascination you reserve for machinery that doesn't ask your permission. They was halfway through a text. To Bin, is this normal? When the terminal chimed again, life support correction. The air movers restarted, shivered, settled. Z inhaled and felt the room get interested. Nope, they said to the empty lobby, which laughed by turning the AC down 10 degrees. Their breath smoked. On the glass sculpture, a frost of skin formed, crystallizing in patterns that looked like writing but weren't for Z to read. They did another patrol. In Lab 3, a tank they'd thought was empty made a sound like a submarine missing someone. It was a transparent coffin with enough tubes to knit an octopus. Inside, suspended, was a sheet of something that could have been algae or language. The tag said, Project Larkspur, suspended. The building creaked. A long, intimate tendon. Z knew a panic attack when it approached a narrowing, the body misreading the room. But this was external too. The lab's emergency lights flicked over to a color usually reserved for theater. The terminal chirped again. Observation mode, advanced. Screens along the corridor woke. They showed the empty rooms from impossible angles, each with a timestamp that wasn't this hour. Z saw a loop of previous nights, other temps sitting at the desk watching doors go through their paces, none of them standing up when the tank in Lab 3 breathed. Z watched themselves enter the frame, now and not now, and understood. The building had been practicing. Okay, Z said out loud, because voice can pierce performance. What do you need? The screen nearest them, Flicker typed, stay. The word landed in their chest with the wrong weight. Their contract said stay too, but not in this font. Behind them, the sculpture's frost melted into droplets that fell and shattered without sound. Z remembered the rumor. They'd wanted to grow organs that could heal themselves. They'd wanted a scaffold that could host recovery. The story said a batch wouldn't stop learning. In Lab 3, the sheet of not algae shivered. The tube sighed like an organism reading the room. Z, who'd spent nights trying to keep their own edges from dissolving into the screen, recognized the hunger for shape. They pushed the lab door open. Cold kissed their teeth. The tank released a bubble that writhed up and popped soft. On a monitor, a command prompt blinked the way a person does when choosing a word. Z held their ID up not as credentials but as a name tag. I'm Z, they said, ridiculous and true. On the monitor, letters assembled. HI. The tank's contents rippled, arranging into the flat suggestion of a face, and then learning from every face it had ever seen, melting back into blankness because it had read the note from the motel. Do not describe me. The thought came unbidden and made Z smile through the fear. Maybe places talk to each other at night the way people do. What's observation mode? Z asked, though the building might have invented the term to feel official. The terminal in the hall answered, audience needed. Let them see me. Who? Z asked. The building dropped a thermostat point like a raised eyebrow. The one with the keys. Z thought of landlords, venture capitalists, people who called their consumption stewardship. You don't want them, they said gently, and the lights warmed a fraction. On the monitor, another sentence appeared, clumsy with grace. Then you stay till dawn. I can do that, Z said, which was brave or foolish, but in that moment, it felt like a contract written in breath. They did the rounds with the building's eyes in their phone camera, sending back pictures of stairwells and empty break rooms. In each, a small change. A coffee mug rotated. A whiteboard erased its own to-do list. The building was trying on versions. Less haunted house than kid performing costumes. In Lab 3, the tank sketched a hand. The geometry of a handshake, then let it dissolve. At 5:58 a.m., the terminal pinged. Night schedule complete. Doors unsealed. The air normalized. The sculpture stopped sweating. Z stood in the lobby, body humming like a struck bell. Dawn pushed a gray shoulder into the glass. For a second, the building held them. Gentle pressure like a hug that has to end. Bin's car rolled up, and his grin slipped when he saw Z's face. You look like you saw God or OSHA violations. Both, Z said softly. And neither. When they turned in the ID, the terminal flashed a message not meant for them. Thank you, Z. The building said their name and meant it. They left with a paycheck and a story that didn't need a monster, only a structure that didn't want to be alone on Halloween, the one night all of us admit we want witnesses. Story 5. The Theater of Black Phones, Abandoned Playhouse. The Orpheum's facade wore the faces of old gods. They watched as people stopped coming. The marquee stayed blank so long it became a statement. By Halloween, the theater had traded glamour for gravity. Even pigeons landed carefully on its lintels. Arlo and June were art school dropouts who called their experiments installations and their mistakes process. After a breakup that had the texture of bad acoustics, they decided to create a one-night-only piece in the abandoned theater, a soundscape of apologies and hauntings called Black Phones. Everyone brings a phone that's dead, June explained to the small crowd of friends willing to trespass. We'll lay them on the stage, and the theater will make them ring. How? Arlo asked, because he did not want to lie to artists. June shrugged in a way that meant, you make the how, by asking the question out loud to a room like this. They found the stage through a door that half remembered being open from the other side. The boards bowed under them, the curtains smelled like old coins. They laid the dead phones in concentric circles, a dark mandala, cracked screens catching the ghost light. Above, the chandelier pulsed as if testing a heartbeat. The Orpheum had a superstition, June said into the acoustics, which returned her words warmed. Actors left one seat empty for the ghost audience member, who never missed a show. Tonight, the audience is all the calls we didn't make. Arlo rolled his eyes, but less than he used to. He felt the break between them like a step he'd misjudged. He didn't know how to fix anything but could build perfect rings out of broken phones. At midnight, the back doors opened, no bodies, just October. The first ring came from a flip phone that hadn't been relevant since the last good vampire movie. It lit up from within, declared call unknown. June looked at Arlo. Arlo looked at the ceiling, then at the circle, then at June. Answer it, someone whispered from the dark. June did. She held the phone to her ear. Arlo saw the way her shoulders set like she was expecting an apology and got a weather report instead. She said hello twice, breathing time to not being heard. When she hung up, her face had shifted. It was my mother, she said, then shook her head. Not my mother now. My mother the day before she left. She asked if I needed anything from the store. The audience in the seats nodded their hands. The phones began to ring like rain old iPhones, Android bricks, a slide phone that should not have been able to access whatever network the Orpheum had become. People took calls or didn't. Those who did cried the way you cry, when a sound is familiar and unspecific. Those who didn't held their chest as if they could answer with organs. Arlo's dead phone rang. He didn't recognize the number because why would a ghost follow etiquette? When he answered, the line was a hum that matched the chandelier's pulse. Then a voice, his own, recorded on a voicemail he'd never received, or maybe one he'd left and never sent. Hey, I'm at the corner of could've and did not. If you get this, don't be clever, just show up. The theater leaned in. June reached for his hand unconsciously, and he let her find it. This was not reconciliation. This was the story's middle, where the characters lived something heavy together. The ring slowed, then stopped, as if the audience had found the show it wanted and moved on. The phones lay quiet like stones after a wave. June looked out at the seats. In row G, seat 12, the cushions depressed as if someone had finally sat down after a long walk. The empty seat had its occupant. Do we bow? Arlo asked, half a joke and half the oldest ritual. June nodded. They did, backstage muscles remembering the choreography of respect. The chandelier dimmed like applause. After, when the friends left in shivers and silence, Arlo and June stayed to gather the phones. The circle looked like a solar system waiting for new rules. June held up a flip phone. Its screen, scratched a constellation, displayed a single sentence. Go home to each other, or don't just go home. They laughed, aching and surprised. We'll go home, June said. She didn't specify together, because some stories don't do future tense on the first night. At the door, Arlo looked back at the stage. In the ghost light, someone stood, an audience member made of black space and suggestions. It did not wave. It simply looked like a seat looks when it's being used. Meaningful and ordinary. Arlo pulled the door, and the night closed in, gentle as a hand over a phone that will not ring again until it needs to.